these two boxes of Rallyman are jam-packed with possibilities, and it's my intention to highlight all of the interesting things you can do with them. This is Shakedown. In today's Shakedown, we're going to try and master some corners by learning how we might best position our cars out on track. So what does it mean to achieve corner mastery? Lots of racing games hope to teach you the fundamentals of good cornering, but only one game I know of actually has you try to perfect each and every corner a circuit has to offer, and that is Need for Speed Shift. If you navigate a corner at the correct speed, stick close to the racing line, don't drive into anyone or lose the rear end to a slide, then you may well be considered to have mastered that corner. Each time you do so in a race, you not only earn points towards your career progression, but should of course be in a better place to actually finish with a win, on account of having not crashed or compromised your track position. It's not too different in Rallyman. The concept of the racing line will allow you to navigate corners efficiently, but the turn order being determined by track position will often give you something to think about when it comes to where you place your car on a given corner, and that's what I want to focus on today. We'll be racing around a small version of Big Willow, one of a few designs of the track that you can find in the Board Game Geek forums for Rallyman GT. We're in the purple GT6 on standard asphalt tyres, and we hope to finally legitimately beat a Dr. Worm NPC at the medium difficulty once more. Before we race though, we're going back to school to learn about the kinds of corners that we're going to encounter. How many corners does this tile depict? If you said 2, then this section of the video is for you, because there is only one corner on this tile. A corner is defined by the rules as a space with a speed restriction, more often than not a number in a circle, but sometimes a number in a triangle as well. They come in all shapes and sizes, appear on any kind of terrain. They can curve gently or sharply, and come with or without shortcuts. These tiles are all examples of corners. In contrast, none of these tiles are corners. Some have different numbers of spaces in the inside and outside lanes, some have features like jumps or water hazards, and the climb tile even imposes speed restrictions, but not in the same way as a corner space does, and so doesn't fall under the definition of a corner. The final check for turn order in both GT and Dirt is position, which is to say that the car on the inside lane for the next corner has priority. It is a common mistake to think that these curved tiles are corners, and ending your turn on the inside of one of them may well lose you turn order because of how the next actual corner turns. Always look down the track from where you are to the next corner space before you decide which space to end your turn in. With that in mind, let's look at the kinds of corners you'll face in Rallyman GT, the dangers they pose, and the ways that you can navigate them. First things first, a normal corner. The corner spaces are marked with circled numbers indicating the highest gear you can safely be in that space. If the number is a 2, for example, then you can be in that space in gears 1 or 2. Anything else and you have broken the speed limit and have immediately lost control of your car. A dangerous corner is a space where the speed limit is found inside a triangle instead of a circle, which tells you that if you're in that space in that gear, you take an additional hazard symbol for your turn, meaning that you're more likely to lose control. If the number is a 4, for example, then being in gears 1, 2 or 3 is safe, being in gear 4 is a risk and you take an extra hazard symbol, and being in anything else means you've broken the speed limit and immediately lose control. A sharp corner is a space whose speed limit may be modified depending on how you enter the space. Whenever you see a dotted line and a number, if you drive straight over that line to enter a space, you modify that space's speed limit, replacing it with the speed limit of the dotted line. If you enter such a space diagonally, then you don't drive over any dotted line and so don't apply the speed limit restriction. Sometimes a corner is so sharp that a dotted line gives you an additional hazard symbol instead, again making it more likely that you will lose control of your car. The most common mistake with sharp corners is forgetting that the speed limit restrictions apply to whatever space you enter. Even if you are coming out of a corner into a space with no speed limit, if you drive directly over a dotted line, its speed limit applies to the space you're entering. Double-wide spaces can also cause some confusion, especially if they feature multiple speed restrictions or are next to more double-wide spaces. If you're on the inside lane, you can't move diagonally into a double-wide space to avoid a speed restriction or additional hazard. Think of it as the dotted line extending all the way across the double-wide space for you. Similarly, if you find a double wide going into another double wide, it is mechanically the same as a single lane going into a single lane, and so the dotted line also extends to the full width of the space. If you find multiple speed restrictions imposed in such a case, then apply the lowest speed limit to the next space. Finally, though these are associated with corners rather than corners themselves, are double length spaces. Here you can make more efficient progress down the circuit by effectively moving two spaces for the price of one die. Use them wisely and they serve as opportunities to generate focus and hamper any efforts to overtake you, but they often mean sacrificing track position to take advantage of them. To perhaps see that in action will mean taking all this knowledge out onto the track against an opponent, where we'll be fighting for turn order, parking ourselves in spaces that force decisions to be made, and hopefully making it as difficult as possible for anyone else to take a corner that we are aiming to breeze through with no problems. Okay, what have we learnt? The first thing that we need to take account of is the turn order of the start line, and that is that the NPC of Dr. Worm is going first. So we are playing catch up in this race. We will hope that it makes a mistake early rather than late. It hasn't crashed yet, and it can get all the way up to gear 6 if we make sure to obey all of the speed limits from the corners, and it will hug the inside lane to deny us turn order should we get there ourselves. Now I'm going to keep those dice there because it's pretty much the route that I want to take. And the reason I say that is because when I think about circuits, I think whether I can get through a corner or whether I have to stop before it. Now, with a corner so quick from the start line, it's easy enough to get through. But the next corner is quite far away. It's a gear 4 corner, so we won't be able to get there in gear 4 and coast through it. Therefore, it is a corner that I'm going to be stopping before. And so it's a corner that I want to stop in as strong a position as I can. Now, we've gone second, which means the NPC has turn order. So we are fighting for second place in the turn order, should there be any more cars, of course. As there is not, then we are just going to have to do our best to maintain the pace with the NPC. That means sticking in a space right beside it. If we stick to the middle, then we have options for going into either the dangerous space or the inside space. If we were instead to stop on the outside, then we are forcing ourselves to go through the dangerous space. So we don't want to do that if we can help it. So I want to do something like this. It puts us in the middle lane. It forces the NPC to either slow down for the inside lane or to dart to the outside for the dangerous space. But first, of course, we have to get there. As you know, I like to go flat out to generate a focus pool. Can I achieve it? I can. We have 2 hazards for that roll. The NPC has turn order. Hasn't lost control. And it has only a couple of hazards. It has to dip down to gear 4 or gear 3, which it can do easily enough. It can even get down to gear 2. I don't think it needs to. If we have it come out in gear 3, obeying the speed limit, of course, and we want to try to have it to end in gear 6, so it can do something like that. Again, it will be hugging the inside lane. It's a harder corner for it to break down to 2 on the next turn, but it can probably manage it, and it will mean that we are again keeping pace rather than overtaking. So we have some fierce competition, but we are coming up to a tricky section of the course. So again, I want to be in the middle lane in gear 6. I want to be in gear 4 on the inside, and then I can use a couple of coast die to get us there. That will mean rolling, but it's just occurred to me that I can do something like this on this turn. Have yourselves a think about why I would want to do that, and I'm going to see if I can successfully roll my way there. We have a couple of focus tokens, 7 in fact. We have rolled 1 hazard on the 4. We are good so far. Right, we are good. So I am going to pay for those 3 dice. That will be 6 focus. Now the reason I have done that is that we have overtaken in gear 6 and then slammed on the brakes into gear 3. So have you worked out why it was smart for me to do that? Now, the NPC has turn order priority. It is going first on this turn, but I can tell you now that it is not moving any further. It is blocked. If it were to move forward into this space, it would have to respect the speed limit of 2 for going over the dotted line of the sharp corner, but it would also have to be in gear 3 to overtake me. It simply can't do that, and so its turn is wasted. All it is going to do is flip its turn marker over and wait for the next turn. And that is because in keeping the inside lane, it didn't give it options should I have come around the outside and taken up this space. If it had stopped in the middle lane, then I could have come to the inside, taken turn order, and then carried on. Or I could have come to the inside and then gone over here to attempt to force it to the inside, probably a bad move in that case. Or I could have come to the outside, which would be even worse of a move in my opinion. So by ending on the inside, it has essentially doomed itself to a player coming around, overtaking it, and slamming on the brakes in the right place at the right time. So we have to make the most of this turn by getting as far away from the NPC as we can. Knowing that there are some slow speed corners coming up, however, I think distance is my priority. So I want to probably coast through and end up in this space in gear 1. I could instead end over here in gear 3 to keep the pressure on the NPC, but I would force myself to take a hazard on the next turn to navigate that sharp corner. I could also break down to gear 1 and put myself in that space in gear 2. Makes it safer for the next turn as well, but if the NPC can get down or can keep at a higher gear, then it will go first and ruin my plans. I think the best thing for me to do is to keep my speed up and take that additional hazard risk for the inside line. Will that come back to haunt me? Flat out, 4 focus generated, and we are into another round. The NPC is going first. Have we made it difficult to overtake? We don't want the same sort of thing happening to us as we did to it. It hasn't lost control. It has a fair few dice to work with. It needs to get down to either gear 3 or preferably for it gear 2. 1 hazard on a brake die for its braking. It can coast out into this space in gear 2. However, It can't get into the next double wide because there is a speed limit restriction of 1. So again, it can't move into the space at a low gear and a high gear for overtaking us. So we have blocked it in that regards. It's not going to be able to go around the outside unless it wants to end its turn in first gear. Maybe that is more preferable because then it will generate or have a better chance rather of navigating the corners. I think that probably is its best bet. It might put the pressure off me, but knowing Dr. Worm's NPCs, absolutely anything could happen, and I will only have myself to blame. So I think that is its best course of action. It allows it to essentially accelerate as far and as fast as it can. So it is now our turn. We have put ourselves on the inside in front of a hazard symbol on a sharp corner. So that was the risk we took on the last turn in order to keep the inside lane. We're going to have to worry about that. We have some focus to pay for dice should we feel the need to do so. The most I can do is get up to gear 3. So again, I have tried to get through as many corners as I can before ending in front of the next corner. So we've navigated 2 corners by doing that. And if we want the inside lane, can do that. And it will also mean the NPC has to overtake us before then breaking into a corner. So I think that is the best course of action. I'm going to roll these one by one because we are going to take a hazard symbol right now. The 1 and the brake were good. Coast is good. 2 is our second hazard. I am going to pay for the last dice so that I don't have to roll it. And we are in this space in gear 3. Now, I have forgotten that it had already moved, and so it was in gear 1. So I didn't have to end my turn in gear 3. I could have stayed in gear 2 and had an easier time of things this turn. However, I'm going to do much the same. Can I navigate the corners or do I have to stop in front of them? I can, in this case, navigate the corners and stop on the inside lane on this back straight. That will be the best course of action for me. I'm going to roll one by one and see how far I get. The 1 is good. Coast is good. Second coast is a hazard. The 2 is good. The 3 is a hazard. I can pay for 2 of these dice. So I'm going to pay for the 4 and the 5. And I'm going to end my turn a little earlier than anticipated. That will put me, I'm going to go to the inside space in gear 5. We only have 1 focus token left. Hopefully we are far enough down the track to not worry about the NPC. Let's see how far it gets. It hasn't lost control. It hasn't even rolled a hazard, so it's done very well. How many corners can it navigate before it has to stop? It can only get through 2 corners, so it can't reach the high speeds that it needs to reach in order to threaten me. So it can end in the middle lane. And we are heading around the final corner in gear, or final few corners rather, in 5th gear. Do I want to keep the pressure up by going for distance, or do I just want speed? I think, knowing what I did on the last turn, it can get to 6th gear pretty much where I am. So if I just roll it like that. I am safe for turn order, and I will hopefully get some focus out of it as well. The alternative, of course, is to, because I'm not using redline rules, is to break down to a low gear from 5 and then accelerate up through the gears to gear 6. But in this situation, because I know I am quite far ahead, I am going to play it safer than that. I'm going to go flat out. I'm going to roll 1 hazard on the 6, but I get some focus before the last few turns and end in the middle lane. I ducked into the inside for that 5th gear corner so that I didn't take a hazard for being in gear 5 on the dangerous space. And I think I'm in a good position to hold on to that lead as the NPC comes around to the back straight itself. It hasn't lost control. It has quite a few dice to work with. It can break down to gear 1. It can coast out. That's its first hazard. It can drop or increase rather to gear 3, 4, 5 is its second hazard. And it can take the middle lane as well. It doesn't have to. It's not getting turn order. Middle lane gives it more options. It will end in this space in gear 6, putting the pressure on me. Now I want to think about slowing down to a low gear because that NPC will probably go the distance in keeping up with me. So I want to coast, and then I can drop all the way to gear 2, although that is a risky roll. I can then coast out and come up through the gears. I will use the double length space to try and get as far away as I can. I will also move over to this side of the course for the inside lane. Remember that it is the next corner coming up. That will put me there if I can manage it, but all of this is a risk. I only have 5 focus to play with, which is not enough to pay for this braking maneuver. 1 hazard on a brake, so not bad. The coast is good. The 3 is our second hazard. I'm shaking the 4, which probably means I'm going to roll it. The 4 is good. I can pay for those final few dice. That will put us in this space in 6th gear. Is it enough, or can the NPC catch up? It hasn't lost control. It can get all the way to 6. It can break down to gear 2 already. That is 1 hazard on a brake die. It can coast through here. It can come up to 3. It can duck into the inside for gear 4. Come out in gear 5 and take the inside lane of the curve. Remember, it is not a corner, but if it wants to make use of this double length space to catch up, then it will have to be in one of these 2 places. We might as well put it on the inside. That will put it in gear 6 as well. And we have to get it right on this, hopefully, last turn in order to take what I hope is a legitimate win against Dr. Worm. I want this to be as safe as possible. So with that in mind, we are going to go 5, 4, 3. Not that that's any safer, really. Do I risk going flat out? Yes. Come on, it puts us over the line. Hopefully not with a crash. 2 hazards, 5 focus. We cross the finish line. In gear 3 for what it is worth. So we gloat our way across the finish line as I finally beat Dr. Worm as he struggles with the back half of the course. Hopefully you have learned something about navigating corners efficiently and safely, and if not, then strategically at any rate. Hopefully you can pull off some sneaky overtakes of your own sometime, hopefully not against me if you can help it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.